Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Deborah Leanne.
What a pleasure to be here with you in the shadow.
And in the light.
So today's topic is about the gene key 27, which is the pulse this week. I don't know when you'll be listening to it, but and it's also Earth Day. So it's kind of interesting that you brought up that part about how the selfishness, which is the shadow, actually gets in the way of some of our how we're treating the planet. So selfishness is the shadow, and in the gene keys, there's 3 levels of consciousness. The first one is the human shared tendency, which is operating in fear, and it is this week it is the shadow of selfishness. And always on the shadow there is a counterpart, the gift, and the gift this week is
altruism.
And this beautiful transcendence leads us to the spiritual state, or the citic state is how Richard Rudd calls it, and that is selflessness.
Yes.
So this is not something where we want to look at, we tend to notice other people being selfish, but we don't necessarily want to look at ourselves. And so we're going to play a little bit with, what does this feel like? Where am I noticing that? And start opening to seeing where we see selfishness not only in the collective, but within, because that is the way that we get to our gift of altruism. So let's talk a little bit about selfishness.
Selfishness. Well, for me, I recognize selfishness is when we're not feeling nurtured.
Yeah, and you didn't give me enough breakfast this morning, so I don't have enough energy to be nice to you. Or in some form of that. If you haven't loved me enough, then I really can't be nice to you in this moment, because I'm feeling like I don't have it in me to have the capacity for, I love the word he uses, consideration.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
So for me, the bridge between selfishness and altruism is that word, consideration. And so you want to riff on that?
Having to have consideration for other people. And it's really interesting because there's so many of us that we give and we give and we give. And so the repressive nature of this particular key is self-sacrifice. I don't want to say that it's a martyrism, but it's giving without being able to receive.
And we notice that a lot in other ways of saying that it's people pleasing. There's the Enneagram, that's the giver, that's more outward focused than inward. And what I have found in my work with mostly women is how we give and give and give and try to make everybody else happy, and then we're exhausted. We're unable to keep doing what we're here to do, or we completely neglect our own spiritual path, our own higher purpose, which is another key to this.
Yeah, that's really big. So that's the repressive nature. Now the reactive nature is the opposite. So it's called self-centered. And when those that are self-centered, you feel that there's agenda behind it, and it's very manipulative. And that kind of giving, is purely from the mind and not from somebody's center. There's something in it for them, so they give something in order to get something back.
It's
more transactional.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We were talking about, there's even a term that we're using now in trainings about transactional conversation, right? Like I'm waiting for you to finish talking so I can throw my words in,
Yeah.
And transactional relationships very often are that tit for tat. Well, you gave me a gift at my birthday, so I will give you a gift on your birthday. It's not like, you know what, today I just saw this and it reminded me of you and I wanted to give this to you. So there's such a difference around that, to feeling what that feels like in your body. Am I being transactional? Am I doing this because I want something back? What's my motivation?
Yeah. So this really is a great reminder for all of us to, when we center and we like give from our heart center, it's from a place of our love, our beingness bubbling over.
Yeah.
It's like effervescence. It's kind of like it naturally gives in a way that's honoring and overflows.
And it ties to our higher purpose.
Yeah.
So when we give from that, what we're here to do and be more of, it nourishes us and it nourishes the collective and the person that's receiving. So there's something in here also, because we're recording this on Earth Day, this feels really important.
Mm-hmm.
About, how did you word that, about how this is affecting the planetary selfishness? What was that?
So and I'm going to read this from Gene Keys, written by Richard Rudd. The 27th gene key is truly vast with its implications at a planetary level. It governs the structure of the food chain, the preservation of gene pools, both human and animal, and it's key to understanding the precise mathematical laws that maintain an overall balance between the different species on the planet. So it even controls the subtle shifts and changes underlying global climate and weather. So I know that seems like so out there, but when you think about our laws of how everything is in balance, the nourisher, the I Ching of this is the nourisher, and Mother Nature is constantly nourishing, but there's always a balance within Mother Nature. And if you've ever studied ecology, there's always the balance that will always take place within species that may be over.
Yeah, there's a lot of acorns this year, so we have more squirrels, and then next year there'll be less acorns, and the squirrel population goes down. So it naturally balances itself out. We sometimes have to wait until we get sick, or our relationship is damaged, or something happens to us that is the wake-up call, and we go, oh, have I been acting in my highest purpose? Am I showing up with my fullness? Am I giving? Can we get into gift in the altruistic way that I know I am?
Yeah. So what I love, Richard talked a little bit about in the 64 ways that the altruism is our human nature. It naturally is. It's the actual act of becoming. It's becoming.
Yeah.
And the when you think about this in terms of other species, not just human, but even like in dolphins and stuff, like they all work in pods to help one another. And that's just their nature. And I believe that that's our nature as well. I mean, we're not meant to do this by ourselves. We're meant to work in alignment with one another. But it's finding the right people to do the work with and have sacred reciprocity with.
Oh, yeah. So someday if we ever get to do the Pearl sequence together, because that is about, my higher purpose, and then finding the collective or the culture that brings even more of that out, and that I'm here to serve and for you to serve. So, I mean, they're all tied together.
Yeah. And when you get into the gift of it with altruism, it is to give to others simply for the act of giving. And that in and of itself, it's not depleting. It's coming from a different place. It's not fearful that it's not going to receive something. It will naturally receive something, because that's the sacred reciprocity of how the balance happens. And so altruism gives without expectation, he says, as well as giving to causes that it knows will be fertile. So your inner knowingness already knows where to point your arrow, or where to focus your energy, so that it will whatever you're building will grow. So,
and what I love about altruism is, even before I love the way he words different gifts and human traits and spiritual states, but there's something about the way he uses it that feels so much more I didn't put the word nourishing ever together with altruism. I just figured altruism was, I'm part of this human family. It's my responsibility to be in service, and versus, oh my gosh, this is what, and he said there's nothing more life-giving than when we are offering our gifts.
Yeah.
And we both had experiences this past week of being in the space of just sharing who we were, and having our clients and the people that received be so have expansive experiences. And that's what we're like, wow, it was amazing for them, but it was amazing for me. And it was like, and so everyone, the ripples of that even go out to the people that weren't in the room with us, right? So they can feel it. And anyway, it's such a beautiful thing when we are tapped in and operating from our higher purpose.
Yeah. And that just feels delicious. This key is physiology is sacral plexus, or the sacral plexus, which is, again, your cauldron, where your creative center is. And this is really supporting empowerment, he says, through deep communal bonding, because you're knowing who to partner with.
Yeah, who do you feel nourished by? What spaces feel nourishing to your system? This morning when I asked Susanne how she wanted her coffee, and she was like, and she felt into how she wanted it, like, how she wanted it served to her. And I thought, sometimes I just make a response just because that's my reactive, but to really feel and go, what would be in the highest purpose for my body today? And it was such a great reminder. So thanks for being a good mirror for me.
I do, because this is all also about relationship and our relationship with one another. And so I'm going to just read this really briefly. Yeah. So it says, if you are not content in your relationships, it may be because you have not nurtured yourself fully. Every relationship,
speak amongst yourself.
Every relationship provides this mirror.
Are you noticing that the timing of this is when I have to leave?
So, it's really important that we nourish and respect and honor that aspect of ourself, our fullness in this lifetime. And if we don't nourish this, how you can't expect anyone else to nourish you. That's not their job. But it is our job to feel fully ourselves and have it bubble over. And that's the ripple effect that we have with one another. But trying to get it, again, that's that shadow part, trying to get it from someone else, or expect, giving to expect something in return, that's not the name of the game.
So appreciated how they have changed children's movies to be, you don't need to be complete by finding your Prince Charming or your princess, or that, even in the Barbie movie, Ken was like, but I don't know who I am without you telling me that I'm needed. And then he finally claims his empowered self, who has his own purpose. It's not about taking care of her purpose. So we are culturally, you're starting to see that we're moving more and more into this space of altruism and seeing that we have a responsibility to each other. Even the big corporate businesses are now knowing if they don't have some type of corporate social responsibility, giving back to the environment, to the community, to their employees in a way that nurtures people, they can't attract the people they need, the talent to do their work.
Right.
So
this key really is honoring this concept of a life dedicated to something higher, and about that is where the healing, the planetary healing, is going to take place as we dive in, look at our shadows, acknowledge them, love on them, care for them, see how we are able to understand ourselves and our own purpose, that unconditional giving and that joy is the thing that bubbles out, and we can be generous from that place. That only from that place. I mean, if you're feeling depleted, there's no space for you to be able to move the energy.
Right. And that is a good time to actually go and see, what do I need? Mm-hmm. Because it's not always about giving. It's sometimes, for many people, it's like, can I learn to receive? And that's a whole nother ballgame of talking about receptivity. So just remembering that as we breathe in, we exhale, but we need to take a breath, right? We can't just keep exhaling. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So there's that balance.
So let's get into the selflessness.
Superfood. Love the superfood.
Oh, I love that.
The new superfood. And I believe, as Richard mentions in this one, that it's going to be our neural network of Gaia when we are connected in a different way, altruistically. The beingness is the cosmic being, and you recognize that anything is possible. Anything is possible. And he actually mentions in there about Jesus. I'm going to bring Jesus into this. I studied a lot about Jesus growing up and the instantaneous healings that would take place in being in Jesus's presence.
And he says, what if those weren't just fables? Exactly. What if it really happened?
Yeah. And me, I've had my own experiences with that, with healing, instantaneous and otherwise, in following the teachings of Christ. And so I know that it's possible. And so we don't know what, it's like, let's just remove this thing of how something needs to be, that belief system that it has to look a certain way, because the lid is off.
Yeah. And it's not, and maybe Jesus as a master teacher was here to model for us that we too have that capacity, that capability. Right. And I feel like when you are that, there's no accident that we call this expansion of the heart chakra Christ consciousness, and many, not even just Christian levels, but this Christ consciousness is opening us all to our truth, our beingness, our sharing, and then I love how you brought up sacred reciprocity, that exchange that happens.
Yeah.
And that's where healing is for all of us.
Yeah. And it's really, it's that love of humanity, and it's the path of compassion. And even as the most basic thing, if it's not like healing on a global or planetary level, being kind.
So it's almost like consideration,
compassion,
and then this monster superfood of the healing can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so,
I was going to say consciousness.
Well, I want to, I do want to read this one section because I think it's really beautiful, because it's talking about music, how it ties to music. So one other way of approaching this particular city of selflessness is through the analogy of music. Now, there are certain cities that have deep relationships to music as a binding force behind all life. And so there is this fractal mathematical law that governs the cycles and the elements of our planet. And the way in which water and air combine, both through the global weather patterns within the digestive tracts and the respiratory systems of all creatures, creates this exquisite harmonic, if we could but hear it. And so, to reverse an old metaphor, he says, on our planet, love is the food of music, and it can be found everywhere. To those listening through the ears of this city of selflessness, this love is all they hear. One day, you too will hear this music.
That's beautiful. I wish you would have toned in there, because that would have been... So I came back in the room as we were setting up this morning, and Susanne was doing her magical toning, and it just... We're in this little tiny meditation room that's in my house, and it just filled the room, and it was like I could energetically feel it from the next room over. So it's pretty powerful when we are in our purpose and sharing that purpose and how it is healing our spaces, our bodies, each other. And I just want to thank you for that.
Well, we can close with a card, and then a meditation for 3 breaths of ooh.
I love that. And I would share the mudra, but I'm not sure I'm mastered it enough yet. So maybe if I do this conversation with you another time. It's very much about intertwining the fingers, and it is, and the way the symbol that shows up at the end is an ancient, I think he said Hindu, and it's basically the symbol of the mother cow and the udder feeding, just feeding selflessly. And it is such a beautiful reminder that there's always spiritual nourishment available. There's always ways for us to feel more nourished. So, I get to pick a card this time. This one's upside down or different.
Okay, so this is from our card deck, our sister Patricia Wald-Hopkins, Infinite Self deck. And so today is the divine DNA is a spiritual upgrade. And so it reads, we evolve from the inside out. The alchemical fires of transmutation. The biochemical changes allows you to embody the divinity in your humanity. Celebrate the perfection of imperfection in your humanness. And you are a divine work of art. And celebrate the totality of yourself. And I love this card because when I read the totality of yourself, this key, its programming partner, is the 28th gene key, which is about totality. So when you think of altruism, totality is its gift. So selfishness and purposelessness go hand in hand. But when you get to the gift, it's altruism and totality. And when you get to the acidic, it's selflessness, and the acidic state is immortality. So you recognize your divinity in all of it. So
that is exquisite.
So go ahead and put your hand on your heart, and we'll just, if you want to tone with me, you can go ahead and tone with me. And we're going to make an ooh sound because this is your sacral area.
So I'm going to put my hand on my belly.
Yeah.
You put your thumb in your belly button and let the rest of your palm just sacred around your sacrum there, your belly.
Honoring you.